spring, and I think he can already be very proud of this one once again. This is another finish in the money, and there are so many pro gamers who will go home without any money. So once again, an excellent showing by the young Croatian, but let's see if he can have a repeat performance of the last time. If he is able to defeat Clem here, historically he's 1-7 against Clem, so that would be a massive, massive victory, obviously, getting it done on this stage.
It truly would. And we're going to get right on into it. And spawning in the top right, as our blue Protoss, playing for Team Infinity Gaming, it is Goblin.
The man who lost the Phoenixes in this matchup, and I am convinced we're going to see quite a few of those throughout this best of 5. In the left bottom side, we're looking at the main base of the man that would love to have a top 8 appearance once in one of these WCS circuit events. His best result in his career so far is a top 16. It is Clem.
And I tell you what, Clem, back in WCS Spring, even though he didn't make it as far as Goblin, he left an impression on everybody's mind. That series against Showtime, he pushed Showtime to the absolute limit, being behind in games, but showing a way to come back in a matchup that a lot of Terrans find difficult, honestly. But Clem, he's a little fighter man.
He is. Obviously, guys, both these dudes are super young. They have both recently turned 17, as far as I remember. They started playing in these WCS events right when they turned 16. They were eager to show what they're made of, and it truly is the next generation of Starcraft 2 players. Of course, both of them are a little bit overshadowed by Raynor, because what Raynor is doing is just not normal, guys. Raynor is performing out of this world, and that young Italian kid just doesn't really lose against anybody other than Cyril by the looks of it. But this is still a very, very high-level matchup, and it really gives us a good glimpse of what maybe the next year or the next 2 years of StarCraft 2 in Europe will look like.
These are certainly guys to look out for. Like, we've seen Clem progress as a little player. You know, he'd turn up to the European events and, you know, he'd kind of bomb out a little bit, but it was always like, he's a guy to look out for. Like, it was obviously, you know, a little under pressure here, a little bit choky, but recently he's been really, really shining. So looking forward to see what he can do here. Now, you did talk about it, Kevin. Goblin, he is your son. He likes to whip out the Phoenix. He likes to whip out the Colossus. And when you play against a Protoss player and you can kind of pin down what they're going to do, it makes things so much easier, because usually it's a race full of variety. But when you don't play it like that, you're just making life a bit more difficult for yourself. And we do see that Stargate as anticipated from Goblin.
Yep, and Stargate is very similar to most of the other builds. The Reaper actually just hops into the main base almost immediately. He's very close to grabbing a probe there, but does not get one of these probe kills. In the end, the probe does go down on the other side of the map, so far a very clean start for Clem. I'm with you though, man. Like, Stargate is very powerful in this matchup, guys, and I'm never going to sit here and be like, oh, I don't think Phoenixes are good against Terran, because I think they can be phenomenal. The problem is when you do the same build over and over again, your opponent will start playing more and more greedy, is willing to cut more and more corners, and at one point you're just making it a little too easy, and you're just giving your opponent a little too much comfort. And one of the things about StarCraft 2 is that you want to keep your opponent in the dark, you want to keep them guessing, you want to be able to throw those curveballs. But hey, if somebody never throws a curveball, at one point you're like, all right, I don't even really need to see anymore to even know what's happening in this game.
If you know where to hit, you're just going to hit as hard as you can. And right now, Clem, he's going into this match with the absolute knowledge that Goblin is going to be going Phoenix. So with the mine drops, are they going to be a thing? I'm not sure. Like, personally, I like to go for like a Cyclone Viking kind of opening, just being very, very safe against Goblin's playstyle. Also, Goblin usually takes a much later third against Terran. So those two base pushes, he plays a very anti-meta style. So against Goblin, you do have to play a little bit offbeat, but when you know what he's doing, Kev, it's going to be rough already.
Yeah, well, the scout here is good by Goblin. It's obviously very nice that these mines were not burrowed yet. He flew over them, but he should avoid them at all costs. We are going to get a minor pause here from Clem. That perhaps allows me to talk a little bit. Obviously, I had a little chat with Goblin this morning and yesterday as well about all of his games. And he's like, I don't want to play against Clem, man. He's like, I hate playing against Clem. I'm like, oh, why? Like, what's the big deal here? He's like, the problem with Clem is that he just never, like, really attacks. He just sits there, and then he waits until I moves out, and then he counterattacks, and eventually he base trades, and he always wins. I'm like, if you know that's happening, shouldn't it be very doable to do something about it? He's like, but I just can't kill him, and then I move out, and then he base trades. I'm like, well, this doesn't seem like rocket science to me, Goblin. You're one of the hottest European Protoss prospects that we have. I'm sure you can figure out how to deal with a Terran that wants to base trade, right? But these are obviously things that are going through the mind of these players, and that's one thing that Goblin seems to be very concerned about. It feels that he is comfortable in getting in a good position against Clem, but it seems like he doesn't really know how to close out the games. He doesn't know how to kill Clem. He doesn't know how to actually get close to victory.
And yeah, it's kind of what we talked about before. Goblin plays a very anti-meta style. He's got a formula planned out. So as soon as a player throws a cog in the works and no longer applies to your formula, the game gets very tough. Like, one thing that I really want to see from Goblin, and he actually looks very calm and calculated on stage. So I'm enjoying seeing that.
Compared to last time already, right? Like obviously,
Shaking and nervy.
Yeah, the people don't always see this at home, but one of the few times last time, like this is the very first time Goblin played on the big stage. Like he had one of the group matches, but that's a bit different because then you have extra lives. When you're playing the elimination bracket, when he played up, when he went up against Raynor as well, you could see that wasn't his greatest series. Of course, Raynor had a really good approach last time they played against each other here in spring. But it felt that Goblin was capable of showing a little more. Right now, you can really see how quickly these kids grow up. 2 months later, and he's sitting there like that's where he belongs. He's like, yeah, been waiting for this all weekend. Want to show some of that Phoenix Colossus magic.
and we will get right back into the game. So Goblin got to see those Widow Mines. He kind of knows, like, most likely it's going to be a Widow Mine drop of some sort, which I think is kind of a crazy choice against a Phoenix opener, right?
But maybe he doesn't even drop, Ben. What if he doesn't drop? What if he just kind of keeps them at home and wants to make sure he won't get harassed? The Widow Mines are still there. This Phoenix is actually very, very close to them. It seems that Goblin just really wants to keep a close eye on what is happening with those mines. Are these defensive mines, or is he actually going to pick up these mines and is he going to do something with the Marines as well?
It's a tricky position to be in when you know what your opponent's going to do. You know he's going to make Phoenix, which are a very good harass tool, and you've opted for Widow Mines and then Medevac, because that also signals that you want to be aggressive against it. Ooh, Clem showing a little bit of indecisiveness here, opting for a third gas, and now the Cyclone and the Stim.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick Stim. We do have that Robo Bay on the way, guys. This is not going to be a surprise. We're probably going to be saying this quite frequently throughout the series, but Goblin loves the Phoenix Colossus. That's where he wants to get at it. I feel like in the old days, Goblin was a little more adventurous with his Phoenixes. I think Phoenix are phenomenal in this matchup, but I am convinced that you need to get some damage done. Phoenix are not units where you can basically just be like, I'm going to defend forever. No, eventually you want to get a couple SCVs as well. You want to create a bigger worker lead than you normally already have as a Protoss, because in the straight-up fight, the Bio is going to be a little bit more powerful, these units of Clem, than the Phoenixes are of Goblin. So it's very important that Goblin picks off a couple of units here and there, picks off a couple of SCVs. I think the real targets are often the SCVs that are building the extra barracks, the factory, the starport and stuff like that, because that is super frustrating as a Terran player to deal with.
I tell you what though, if that Medevac and those Widow Mines have done anything, they've definitely made those Phoenix feel like they need to stay at home as opposed to harassing, and Goblin has gone for a much earlier third this game. And he's also starting the Colossus production. He's maintaining the Phoenix production. Normally, he feels a lot more like, oh my gosh, is the Terran going to attack me pretty soon? And from where? Takes the third very late. But in this game, he's already changing up the build a little bit.
This is going to be a pretty powerful army coming out of Clem, though, and it's mostly about the Marauders, guys. The Marines, as long as they stay in the back, they're always going to be fine. But if the Marauder count gets a little bit higher, because Goblin likes to build Colossus so quickly, he often doesn't have a lot of Immortals. I believe we have one Immortal out on the map. Can we get a confirmation of that? Yes. But one Immortal is often not enough to deal with 5-6 Marauders with Stim if they start moving forward. Obviously, when the moment you know that your Observer gets taken out, it's very likely that Terran players wants to move out. I'm starting to get a little bit worried here for Goblin, because I look at that third base. I feel like it's a little bit exposed. This Terran army feels quite powerful to me already. He's already getting a second Robo. I do like that. But after this Colossus ban, I would personally love to see him add another Immortal, because I truly believe that is what Goblin needs.
I'm a little surprised as well that there's no sentries out on the field, because a Guardian Shield would be so good against this. Even some force fields keeping the units at bay, but he's been utilizing all that gas on the Phoenix, the Colossus, the big tech units, and also getting those gases so early on the third base. It's kind of nuts.
Activates the barrier immediately with the Cyclone, by the way. That is so nice. With a forward Stim, this could actually get very, very dangerous. The Nex is taking quite a bit of damage. The Phoenix will fly in. They do live the Widow Mines. That's very well done, but these Colossus got to stay at bay because there are quite a few Marauders, and this Nex is taking a lot of damage. Shield Barrier could maybe heal it, but that's not going to be done in time. And I think in the end, this is already a very good attack here for Clem.
And look at the focus fire on those Phoenix as well. That number has been greatly dwindled. Clem behind this, by the way. He's also got his third being made at his natural, which is very, very good for the youngster. And picking off that third as well, the Nexus, great start for Clem.
And not just the Nexus, 5 Phoenixes went down. Phoenixes are very expensive units, and they're also units that kind of snowball, right? Like every Phoenix makes all the other Phoenixes that are on the map more powerful because they work together in picking off targets. So if you lose 5 Phoenixes, you basically lose everything, because with only 3 Phoenixes left, you can do so freaking little. So even though that may felt like an even fight, that was actually a enormous victory for Clem.
And yeah, the resources lost tab really shows that too. 2.8k against the 1.3k. Great trade and great micro by Clem. I was so impressed by the fact that he knew he could take that fight and also kill the Nexus while focusing down all the Phoenix.
I think he was spot on when he said like there was no Guardian Shield in the beginning of the fight. That was weird, and I think those batteries were a little bit late as well, because if those batteries are a tiny bit quicker, then you can get a little more adventurous with your units, because these units do have a lot of HP. Clem is going to try the same thing one more time. There are still Widow Mines in the mix, which makes this so hard for these Phoenixes to engage properly. There is an Observer now as well, so the Colossus are going to push his army away. But Clem's going to be feeling pretty good. He's up 4 workers. And how often do we cast TVP games where we're like, yeah, Terran is up 4 workers 8 minutes into the game? That's when you know things have gone quite well for the Terran player.
He's not scared at all, and the fact that he's being so aggressive on the map, just kind of sharking around that middle section, the Phoenix can't do what they want to do. They are made to wound the Terran economy, and right now, Clem is getting ready for that double starport production. 63 workers, he's got superior upgrades right now too, and look, if any moment that he can get into the base, it could be a dicey one. These Phoenix, they are in a spot to normally shut down medevacs, but Clem just flies right in, and he might pick up an Immortal here too.
Yep, he's going to get on top of the robotics facility as well. The Widow Mines will burrow too in time. This is a disaster for the young Croatian Protoss. He's going to be forced to disengage. He's going to have to run through these mines, loses a sentry in the process as well. Maybe one more mortar goes down, but don't forget he lost the Robo as well. And that's kind of all he wants to do. I actually think the Marauders can fight this. It's just a couple of Colossus. Clem will get out of there for now. Goblin is going to start floating money because he's been losing his infrastructure. And yeah, sure, the Phoenixes are getting a couple of kills here in the end. But this was once again absolutely worth it for Clem. Even though losing all these medeffects, it does get a little bit pricey in the end. I think Clem should have stayed in the main base there, Ben. I really think if he just A-moves there, he gets that Immortal, he gets at least one of those 4 Colossus as well.
Because the thing is, that Immortal was really low too, and that's the only thing that really dealt sufficient damage against those Marauders to take them down.
Yep.
But it's not as if Clem is stopping anytime soon. +2/+2 starts, a 4th base, and also getting those air upgrades. Goblin getting this spot on this Viking tech is actually a really big deal.
Yep, that is very nice. Immediately plants down that fleet beacon, so he's going to go for even more Phoenix. He's going to get +1 air weapons. That's more than halfway done, and will most likely get any Impulse Crystals as well. As we're going to take a little look at the things that Clem is currently focused on. He dropped that Ghost Academy there, by the way, on the left side of our screen. That is, of course, a very important building. You know, even though it feels close, it feels back and forth, I really do think that Clem has been in control of this game since his very first move out. I think that if Goblin wants to make this style work against Clem, and Clem knows Goblin very well, he needs to be more adventurous with the Phoenixes. The only thing I see these Phoenixes do are potentially snipe medevacs, but Clem is not stupid. Clem is not sending out medevacs one by one. Clem knows that if he just keeps all of his units together, his army is going to do more than fine in the straight-up fights, and he doesn't need to set individual drops out. And hey, the Phoenixes, they need to do more, Ben. They need to do more than just control the empty skies.
And their life isn't going to get easier anytime soon either. Those Ghosts, if they can EMP those Phoenix, the only thing they can do is die to the Vikings in the sky. And Phoenix do tend to clump up. And, I mean, this is such a huge committal to the Phoenix, even going for the Fleet Beacon with the range upgrade and getting the air weapons as well.
Is there a Widow Mine in the middle line? I don't think there is, right? There's only 2 mines out on the map. There's no missile turret there. I mean, there's 1 mine on the right side. The other one is over here on the top side.
So cautious with the Phoenix.
Yeah, he's too. I mean, obviously, he lost 5 of them in the beginning of the game, so I understand the scare, because if he loses the Phoenix once again, then he cannot keep his Colossus alive anymore. But I look at this Terran army, Ben, especially with the Ghost on the way. I like the way that Clem has been playing this, and I think Goblin is on the ropes here.
He certainly is. Now, these Phoenix are a great unit to have, but this Viking cluster, if Clem micros it, he's focusing down the Colossus immediately. The Ghost, it's a big MP on a lot of those Phoenix. It's a nice spread of the Phoenix by Goblin. And these Colossus, they are kind of going uncontested at the back there, but there is so much Clem on the field.
Yep, upgrades as well, of course, in favor of our Terran play now with +2 armor finishing up as well. This is a very expensive army that Goblin is building, so he doesn't have that double forge like Protoss players normally do. I must say the Phoenixes did a very good job there in picking away a couple of these Vikings. Quite a few of them did go down, so Clem is probably going to have to chill out for a little bit. What are the upgrades of Goblin like right now? It can't be much,
It's like
right?
1-0 attack and that's it. Like, it's really bad for his ground army because these bio units are getting stronger and stronger. Now there's more Ghosts in the mix.
Yeah, and don't forget about the EMPs as well. So you're looking at a 3 upgrade advantage for the Terran player with potential EMPs as well. It's like, yeah, Immortals and Colossus are great and all, but eventually they're going to need a little bit more. The shield battery tries to keep that Colossus alive, but that's not going to get the job done. And it just feels that I look at a Terran army that's probably not going to get stopped here. Maybe the Phoenix can drag some of these Widow Mine fire above the bio, but that's not happening either. Clem is just showing some absolutely phenomenal display here when it comes to controlling his Terran army. He's doing a really good job in kiting it as well. I mean, these Zealots, those are slow Zealots, man. They have almost no impact in these fights at all.
And it's so strange for me that he's prioritizing the air upgrades over the ground upgrades of his army. I feel that that's one thing that's really going to bite him in the butt. Now, the one disadvantage for Clem right now is his medevac count is low. And you see that the production tab, he is making those, so his army will have a lot more endurance and sustainability.
I mean, I do kind of like it in a way that he maybe whoa, what are you doing there, Goblin? He's attacking his own pylon. What I think I kind of like, oh, that's a good pickup as well on his Colossus, that he probably feels that if he takes care of all the Vikings and the medevacs, Colossus and Immortals are going to do decent on the ground regardless. I know that's a risky call, but I think given his circumstances, that may actually be the very best call he could make here. If he gets +2 on the Phoenixes, I mean, Phoenixes do attack twice, so attack upgrades are very, very useful for them. It's not looking pretty, but maybe Goblin can pull off a miraculous comeback here.
And he's going for it. The whole Terran army is pretty red. These EMPs do land. There are a lot of Colossus at the back. He moves up the hill, but his Phoenix count is so diminished at this point. He's having to retreat, and this is so much Clem just staring at the face of Goblin, and he's running in. He's going to run in under these Colossus with the Marauders. He's going for it. There is no more meat shield left. There is too much Clem. Goblin trying to micro for his life, but all the Colossus have fallen. And Clem takes the first game of this series really convincingly.
Upgrades, upgrades, upgrades there in the end. I think that was pretty obvious. Those buy units, it just felt like they were being tickled by those Colossus and the remaining Immortals. And obviously the Zealots, I mean, they have no impact at all. Those are Zealots with no upgrades. They didn't even have charge. Clem, like, when you go up against the style that Goblin is doing, a lot of people may have looked at the game and be like, wow, that looked like really stupid. What's Goblin doing? But it comes down to the very first move out, right? Like, if he keeps that Nexus alive the first time, if he actually takes a much better fight there, that's a completely different game. And then suddenly these Phoenixes are wreaking havoc and they're dominating the entire map. They're lifting up SCVs. But because Clem stayed very patient in the beginning, didn't go for any single drops, because he knows that's just going to get shot down by this Phoenix style. So he's like, nope, I'll keep my army together. I'll make one push. And with this push, I'm going to create the advantage for myself. That's what he did. And he just kind of hang on to that advantage for the rest of the game.
I think there was a few things there that were really cool by Clem as well, like making the Widow Mines and the medevac, but never really using them. Then the Phoenix immediately, like, Goblin respected Clem too much to be wanting to deal that damage, but Clem, too smart of a lad, just stayed back the whole time. Then the push came, that push where he annihilated 5 Phoenix and pulled down the Nexus as well. That was miraculous play by him.
Yep, that's just phenomenal. You get the Nexus and you get 5 out of the 8 or 9 Phoenixes at that point. I mean, once again, Phoenixes are units that become stronger with each other. Like 3-4 Phoenixes, it's, yeah, you can get a single Marine, you can get an SCV, but you won't really get much more. The moment you have 8 or 9 Phoenix, you can fly around, you can snipe medevacs, you can snipe Vikings, you can lift up entire mineral lines. But Clem was like, nope, we're not having that. I'm going to keep your Phoenix count low. And when you lose the Nexus as well, Phoenixes are great, but they are very, very expensive. And that's just something that I really felt Goblin was never going to be able to bounce back from.
Kevin, I've said it so much throughout the last few months. Like, I want to see Goblin mix it up. And, you know, playing on the main stage here, it's all well and good whipping out a unique style when nobody knows who you are, which is kind of what happened last spring. Like, people weren't prepared for this guy to do his style as good as he did. But now people know about it. That first Phoenix will fly in every time and scout what's going on. You don't even need to scout Goblin. And when you're not utilizing your race's strengths, which Protoss' strength is variety, it's always a hard position to play from.
In his defense, I do think you can always play Phoenix, but you can still switch it up a lot, right? There are many different ways to play Phoenix. You can go Phoenix Zealot, you can go Phoenix Colossus, you can go very heavy on the Phoenix or very heavy on the Robo units. You can play very adventurous with your star units or actually keep them at home. So there are still different ways to play with the same unit comp, but he is indeed going to have to keep Clem guessing a little bit. We'll see if he's going to switch it up a little bit here in Game 2 on the right bottom side of Acropolis. We're looking at the main base of our Croatian Protoss. It is Goblin.
And spawning over in the top left side. Currently 1-0 up in the series and playing a phenomenal TVP so far. It is Clem.
Clem, I think, has a lot of bad luck in the past of some of these WCS spring events or WCS circuit events, I want to say, because we all know that Clem is good enough to have a very deep run. And with the 4 or 5 attempts that he's had so far, I feel like there should have been a quarterfinals in there. And maybe if he would have gotten lucky, even a semifinals appearance, because Clem really is one of the very best Terran players in Europe. We don't just talk about him because he's young and cool and sweet. No, we talk about him because he's one of the very best Terrans in Europe. He may not be Hero Marine, he may not be Uthermal, but he's pretty damn close to these guys.
He's a young version of either one of them and a kind of a combination of the two, because Clem, if there's one thing you have to say about him, he's pretty consistent. Like, I never see Clem give up without a fight. He's a true little scrappy battler. And the thing is, he's pretty wild too, like very, very aggressive. Now, this game, Acropolis, this is one of the larger maps in the pool. Now, Clem does start off with an SCV scout as well. So I like the fact that he's kind of respecting his opponent. He didn't see a probe on the map, and like no probe has scouted him. So getting a confirmation that this Nexus is going up, he knows he's not against any kind of proxy gateway, but we never thought that we'd see that from Goblin anyhow.
Nope. We'll see if Goblin is going to switch it up a little bit or if he's going to do more of the same, the heavy robo. Like, I like the idea of going for the double robo, the triple Stargate. The problem is, it felt like it never got up and running. That first attack did way too much damage, then that drop in the main base. Even though, in the end, Goblin cleaned all of it up, he lost one of his robos. So with that, he loses his momentum of building up that invincible army. And yeah, even if he gets all those units in the end, that would have really hurt Clem if he was like a 2-base Terran on 48 SCVs. But Clem was a 4-base Terran at that point, and then it's completely okay to throw away your bio units. We're once again looking at the Stargate opening, and I'm not shocked, I'm not disappointed, but I do hope that he shows us a different version of it.
Absolutely. Like that last game, the Phoenix did nothing that he wanted them to do.
Yeah.
Even when he was passive with him, when he was like patrolling at the top of the map, the medevac still got in. Like, they had one job at that point, Kevin, or he wanted them to do one job and they couldn't even do that. So Clem, I think he's definitely going to be feeling confident, and these guys are teammates, we cannot forget, and their scores, they've all been playing very, very recently, even playing big best of fives over in the Clash tournament a few weeks ago, and Clem, he always seems to have the upper hand against Little Goblin.
Very quick robo as a follow-up here. 3 minutes and 10 seconds. It's a little bit quicker than the previous game. I think this Reaper is actually going to go down here. That's very nice. I love how he tried to drop the grenade there. It was a Hellion opening. Now, these two Hellions are already driving into the natural. The Adepts are a little bit out of position. And I'm getting a little excited here, guys, because 2 Hellions can do a lot of damage. There is a Phoenix that can maybe lift one of these Hellions. And with 3 Adepts, I actually think Goblin should be fine here. Might end up losing 1 or 2 probes, but pretty good defense, I'd say.
Oh, that's a great shutdown. He might get another shot on that probe as it lands. And he does. He goes for it. Little Clem's a battler. So 2 probes down, and he gets a confirmation of the tech for sure. Now, that's a pretty decent spot to be in. By the way, double Widow Mines after this against a Phoenix player when you know he's going to go Phoenix.
This time he's actually going to go for the drop. It's a much bigger map, so maybe he feels like this time he can get out of there. But I think this was going to be a raise, or this will raise a massive giant red flag for Goblin. If he flies into main base and he sees absolutely nothing, I think at this point he should know there is something out there on the map, and it is very, very likely to be a Widow Mine drop. He's actually going to send the Adepts into the natural, though, and there isn't much here to defend this for Clem, right?
I'm definitely a little bit scared for Clem. I mean, if he gets a good surround with the SCVs, and oh, he had a Widow Mine hidden there too.
How many mines does he have? He has 3 mines in the medevac as well, doesn't he?
Ah, yeah, we should have clued in. So he's making 2 at a time, 3 in the medevac, 1 at the natural. This is supreme defense by Clem. And Goblin, like, after seeing that, after seeing the Reactor 2 still on the factory, where are these Widow Mines?
Okay, he actually just picks up these mines as well. The Phoenixes are very close to this on the right side, but don't forget about the medevac that's flying into the natural of Goblin at this point. Goblin is not paying attention, and this time I think he's going to lose a lot of workers here.
Oh my, 13 probes fall, and he catches this drop, but it was almost all a distraction. He doesn't even kill one of the Widow Mines. Terrible start for Goblin this game, and Clem, he is just showcasing that he is a phenomenal Terran, and he knows how to take advantage of his very linear opponent.
And of the map sizes as well, right? Like, just feeling that he can get away with something like this on Acropolis, a much bigger map than we saw before. I mean, in the end, Goblin is going to chase this down, but the worst thing that happened for Goblin during all of this... Oh, no. These mines are actually going to burrow. They're ready to fire as well. You can't lift all 3 at once, Goblin. Well, maybe this time you can, but... You use so much energy in the left bottom side. He lifted all 3 mines, guys. And if you only have 3 Phoenixes and you lift 3 mines, you're dealing 0 damage. Obviously, Goblin probably pretty shocked by the fact that he lost all those probes. Panic mode, you pick up everything you see, but this is not going well at all. Goblin down in workers, and he hasn't taken care of any of these mines.
No, and I mean, they are kind of waiting here, and oh, are they they're not in vision of that observer either, are they? No. So, I mean, it's an out there location for the Widow Mines to be in. They would love to move somewhere else, but he's got traps in multiple spots, and this could deal a lot of damage if he's lucky.
Yep. We see the observer on the minimap is actually moving towards the center of this map. I think there's another observer in the natural, but I think that Goblin knows that there are a couple of traps set up. I don't think he necessarily knows where they are. I mean, he looks at all of those Marines. That's not something you really want to fly into either. Maybe you could take a look into the main base. He's getting very quick +1 air weapons. Already a very quick second robo as well. But it's important, man, like we said before, that these Phoenixes get a little bit more adventurous. Even if he ends up losing one of them, he does not good micro there. He gets a couple of SCVs. This is nice, but we need more of this.
Well, this is like the first SCV kill of the series, I feel like. And, you know, already getting 6 SCVs and getting out of there, yeah, you take some hull damage, but that's what we need to see from Goblin. We need to see more of it. Right now, so Clem is taking his 3rd base. That's decent for sure. And given how many probes Goblin lost early on, he's done a darn good job of catching back up, actually. Like, 59 workers to 49. He's also sharking about. He's playing more aggressive with his Phoenix. Yeah. This is good play.
Yep, and he's going to see the army in the middle of the map as well. I think with his observer, he knows about all of these mines. I don't think he still knows about the mines that are still there on the right top side. This is the only thing I'm a little bit worried about. But hey, he's got a couple of Colossus out already. I believe it's 2. So as long as he stays patient against this army of Clem, like, can Goblin fight into Clem if all the mines are burrowed? No, you probably don't want to do that. But can Clem run into Goblin? No, I don't think that's the case either, because this is a very strong defensive army from our Croatian Protoss. So I kind of think as long as Goblin keeps track of Clem's army here, he can absolutely crawl his way back into this game. Because let's not forget, that very first Withermine drop, that hurt a lot. That can be game over in some scenarios, but I think Goblin is fighting back.
Oh, and this observer positioning is, yeah, it's a big deal. You see all these Phoenix flocking over for that medevac, and Clem wanted to deal a lot of damage with that, but it will be shut down. And on the other side of the map, too, Clem, he's just building up slowly. He's getting his 4th and 5th barracks, getting a 2nd starport. But this is a big move in, Kev.
Yeah, but look at these batteries. As long as there's an observer here, the Colossus can keep this army at bay for sure. You got to be careful here, Goblin. Don't get too eager. He probably looks at his army. He's like, that's it? It's like, yeah, that's it. But there's a lot of mines there. Observer goes forward. Now I actually think he can absolutely just fly in and lift all these Widow mines. That's going to be a pretty nice pickoff here for Goblin.
That's 10 supply that just dropped just like that. And it's a much larger map, which is really, really good for Goblin's kind of playstyle. But he is missing out on the upgrades here, Kev.
He's going triple robo, the absolute mad lad. Goblin is going triple robo over here, guys. Still a single Stargate. He does have +1 air weapon.
Wait, does he have Warp Gate? No, he's doing the full-on Roddy build, Kev. Just starts Warp Gate 8 minutes into the game.
That's why I love this kid. Now he's getting a fleet beacon and he's getting a 2nd Stargate. So he was talking to me a little bit about this. He's like, can this ever work? I'm like, yeah, it can work. He's like, but I'm going to float money. I was like, nah, just keep building batteries. Just keep. But now he probably looks at his Cybercore. He's like, I may as well get Warp Gate in the end. I mean, I think in the fights, he did all right so far. But it is important that he does start getting a forge, right? Like, eventually, it's nice to get a couple upgrades, Goblin. Hey, he gets +1.
I like that you're just laughing your butt off here, because it is a father-like son moment right here.
This is beautiful.
This
I've waited my entire life for this, Benjamin. I think it's great. I mean, like, I would like to see maybe a couple of Immortals, which is what he's adding in as well. He's throwing in 3.
And 6 cannons to like seal the deal on this 3rd base, just solidifying his position, because he's definitely in a decent spot. The thing is, he is really going to fall behind in those upgrades, which is kind of rough, you know, if you're just getting +1 and you're going up against like a 2-2 Terran.
But I mean, if he gets +2 air weapons, I think in the last game the Vikings is really what kind of hurt him, right? Because Clem was able to kite with the Vikings over and over again. But I think Phoenixes can be very decent against Vikings, as long as you don't fall too far behind. I mean, Goblin is building up a mighty fine army, though. Like last game, he had a bunch of slow Zealots. This game, it's power units, baby. 6 Immortals, 5 Colossus, 12 Phoenix. I'm getting a little excited over here, Ben. I think it's a pretty cool army comp.
It certainly is. I'm a little bit worried for Clem moving out with this little army against like a...
Cancel.
Okay, just get a cancel. I mean, that's a nice little
victory. But the Phoenix can fly in this army and he can kill everything here. He can absolutely kill this army. If he would have chased with his ground army, for sure. That army would have crushed that army of Clem.
How many Vikings are back at home for Clem? Because he's been building up
10 more, because he's got only 1 here in the mix.
Oof. I mean, that's getting to a scary number, and yeah, that is a strong army now, and the upgrades are really good for him too. 1 ghost in the mix.
I'm surprised there's once again not a sentry. Okay, there he goes. He wipes in the sentry, but that means he's not going to have Guardian Shield for a while. This is a sweet moment for Clem to fight, of course, guys. This is a 2-2 timing, and this time the batteries are not ready yet. I don't think that Goblin can really fight his army right now. He should have collapsed on that army before. When the tiny army was out on the map, that's an army that he should have picked. That's the power of the Phoenix. But he let everything retreat, and now you look at Clem's army, you're like, oh my goodness, that is a very powerful Terran army.
Oh, and that was a great EMP on the Phoenix as well. The Vikings and the Phoenix going toe-to-toe. The Colossus are doing a lot of damage, but the Immortals fall, and that is so much bio. He's collapsing on the Colossus. Now there's nothing to keep them at bay. All the shield batteries, all the cannons are at the 3rd base, but that's not where Clem's attacking. Goblin gets smashed up by little Clem, and GG in one fell swoop.
That was probably the worst moment ever for Goblin to fight and the absolute best moment for Clem, right? You're looking at a guy whose upgrades just finished up against the other guy who's getting all his upgrades. You're looking at one Protoss who invested a lot in static defenses, but then takes the fight away from the static defenses. And on top of that, I really think that Goblin missed a massive opportunity on killing that tiny army. If he picks up all those units, I don't think Clem can make that follow-up push. But Clem gets a very easy cancel on that fort base, and I think that delayed all the static defenses as well. I mean, in the end, and then suddenly you're looking at 2-2 bio against, what was that, 0-0 ground, right? I don't think +1 was done yet.
You know, it didn't kick in there, which is a crazy spot to be in, but you're right. Like Clem, he just maxed out at that point.
Yeah.
The one ghost just joined the rest of the army, pushed in a great EMP, and all that static defense just being on the wrong base. It's all right having a really secured third. I think that was good, but the fact they tried to put down the Nexus without knowing, like, okay, I need the shield batteries here, I need the Colossus, because all I need to do is buy time.
He basically invested close to 2,000 minerals in static defenses, but it takes the game-deciding fight away from the static defenses on the absolute ideal moment for the Terran player, while it was a very unfortunate moment to fight for the young Croatian. Goblin really on the ropes here. I mean, he was vocal about it, that he didn't really feel this series. Of course, he had a fantastic performance in spring, but Clem seems to have the number of Goblin. I mean, you went over it. It's very easy to rise to the occasion, but can you still pull off your builds when everybody knows who you are, when everybody starts taking you serious, and when you're no longer just a random blip on the radar, but when they will actually put some thoughts into how they will play a best of 3 or a best of 5 against you?
And you really see this, by the way, like TVP-wise. Clem isn't playing TVP, he's playing TV Goblin.
Absolutely.
And he's taken total advantage of the way that Goblin plays, and he's so predictable. And we've seen greats in the past fall for the very same things. Happy from StarCraft 2 days, he was a monster on the ladder. He'd always have the best stats. But as soon as it came to a tournament, you knew exactly what he was going to do, and there's always a weakness to a strategy in StarCraft 2.
Yep. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Even though Goblin played it a little bit different than in Game 1, what I'm kind of missing is like what I used to love so much about Goblin, and I know he still has it in them, is that like that craziness and that recklessness. And I feel like if you think about a lot of the successful European tosses, right? You think of a Drogo, you think of a Mana. I think they're all not the most polished Protoss out there, but they're very fun to watch because they're crazy, they're aggressive, they force openings within their opponent's defenses. They go out when you don't necessarily expect them to move out. Goblin, if you make that many Phoenixes, buddy, you got to be a little more adventurous, and you got to be looking for fights, you got to be looking for trades, because it's such a waste to be sitting there on like 100 energy plus on like 15, 20 Phoenixes.
Absolutely. And spawning in the top left as our blue Protoss, currently 0-2 down. He needs to do something, he needs to make magic happen. It is Goblin.
And in the right bottom side, we're looking at the main base of the young Frenchman. He is eager to make this potentially his best WCS circuit event ever. He is Clem.
And you know, Phoenix Colossus are scary, Kev, but he's missing a lot of the main things that I am scared of as a Terran player when I go up against a Protoss. Like, none of these Blink Stalker timings, none of these Warp Prisms flying in that can do crazy, crazy stuff inside your main base and wreak havoc. Even Disruptors haven't really been joining the armies.
Yeah.
And
I think disruptors are great, but I do think that's something you can get a tiny bit later, because I think it is very important that at least you're supposed to survive the initial start of the battles, right? Like these Marauders, these Marines, they have a lot of DPS.
when you have triple Robo, though, I think you can afford to eke out a Disruptor or two.
Yeah, and it's very nice, because with the disruptors, you'll force the bio away, but the moment the bio goes away, the Colossus will reign supreme because they have the bigger range, right? So every single time the bio is forced to disengage, the Colossus can still get a couple of shots off. So you're spot on there, and that's obviously a unit that kind of ignores all the upgrades as well, right? Who cares if you have 0-0? If you land a Purification Nova here and there, you're going to do some good damage. You don't need to have +3 on your forges. So, I mean, like I said, Phoenix Colossus is awesome, and there are so many different ways to play it. But I feel that Goblin is not showing enough courage with his Phoenixes. I think you need to be more active. He did better in Game 2 than he did in Game 1. But when that little army is marching in the middle of the map and you're flying around with 15 plus Phoenix, you have all that energy, you're standing there with Immortal Colossus. If Clem wants to cancel that fort base, go ahead and cancel that fort base. But he's supposed to pay the price with every single unit. Instead, he got out of it with every single unit and joined up with the rest of his army. I mean, that's just not supposed to happen with this army composition of Goblin.
And so far, exact same tech choice by Goblin, and yet again, and at this point, I'm not surprised, Kevin. It's been the same build throughout PVT. for the last few months. And right now, Clem's just showing that he's really good at shutting it down with multiple playstyles.
This is a very tiny map as well. This is nice for Goblin. It would be awesome if the young Croatian can build up a little bit of momentum here. And this is obviously a sweet way to start. You're going to delay this command center from finishing up. He's going to get very quick Phoenixes, so he's going to probably be able to stay in the face of Clem a little bit longer. I was a tiny bit worried at first because I think in general Phoenix do a little bit better on the bigger maps than they do on the smaller maps. But hey, if you can get right in there, it's actually not that bad for Goblin.
Oh, and he just finished the CC, which is a nice little victory for Clem. He probably will lose the second SCV, but he did make an emergency Hellion here, so he probably will be able to deflect this, but this is already a nice little start for Goblin. Even microing away that Adept. Will he be able to keep it alive? Clem is going for the hunt here and will get it. But I tell you what, these Adepts did quite a bit of damage. Very sufficient opening.
Phoenix is going to fly into the main base almost immediately, so it's going to have a good eye on what Clem is actually making. He will see there are no add-ons yet on this factory and starport. Obviously, right the moment when he leaves, there is an add-on. It's going to be a tech lab. You think that's going to be for a Cyclone or a tank?
Whenever I play against Goblin,
I have the Viking. I think it's going to be Cyclone, right?
Yeah, like there's a lot of ways to play against Goblin, especially Phoenix players. You can play very blindly Cyclone Viking and get up a very, very quick. Oh,
wait a minute.
Oh, do you know what this could be? This could actually be a straight up all in from Clem.
Yeah, I mean it's a very tiny map, right? And once again, with the way that Goblin plays it, he delayed Warp Gate for a very long time last game. Don't forget about that, guys. And I think he's doing the same. Is that a depth stuck? Oh no, that's actually very bad because he's already barely going to have any units. I think his Robo is actually a little bit late for delaying Warp Gate this long. I mean, he's going to need a Guardian Shield, he's going to need shield batteries, he's going to need an Immortal, and he needs to get every single Gateway unit out that he can possibly get out. But without Warp Gate, oh no, he does have Warp Gate. The Gateway's finished up, by the way. I don't know, we're blind.
That was like his third Adept that popped out that, you know, he could have maybe put on even more pressure early on.
He needs a Sentry. He really needs Guardian Shield against the push that Clem is going to make. Goblin must have played against this before. He's getting an Observer now. I'd get an Immortal, buddy.
He needs to do something because, I mean, he hasn't spotted any, well...
He sees the Marines and the Viking, though.
I'm a little bit surprised that Clem hasn't moved out yet because I really thought with the tank and stuff early on, I really thought he was going to move out. And
well, maybe he was worried about the Adept showing up at first, and maybe that was like a safety tank. I mean, the Phoenix is doing some decent damage. Now I think Clem is going to go for it. Goblin, you're going to need units right here, right now, my friend.
And look, that Robo Bay is on the way. An Immortal just starts. So that's good. That can definitely keep Goblin in the game. The thing is, he's been probing up like a madman.
What?
A third base just starts as well as this pushes across the map. And no cancel yet.
No fear. I mean, he's actually only has 4 free supply as well, so he's going to be able to warp in 2 more units, and that is about it. There we do get a Stalker, but there's a couple of SCVs in the mix. There's a good chance Clem is going to throw up a bunker or a missile turret here as well. That Liberator gets in a good position immediately. He recalls that Adept. Goblin is, I think he's waiting for that Immortal, and then he wants to go for it, but because the Immortal's so late, now the bunkers are up.
Oh, these Phoenix, they do fly in. Oh, the first Phoenix tries to lift up the tank, but it immediately dies, and he is collapsing on that tank. He's dealing some damage, but that's a lot of Clem still left over, this firepower. I mean, the shield battery keeps up the Immortal, keeps up the Phoenix, but the Immortal dies too. That's a lot of the anti-ground gone. The bunkers do start finishing. There is no tank in the mix, but these Cyclones can start going kind of uncontested here.
Yeah, the Marines should be able to be taken care of by these Stalkers and Phoenixes. One of the Cyclones does go down, but the lock-on really does do a lot of damage. A lot of probes have already gone down in the mix, and these Marines can obviously fall back to these bunkers. Goblin is trying to get a Disruptor out, but already 18 workers have gone down, and it just felt that was kind of an ugly engagement in the end. I really think the Phoenixes could have been more impactful there as well. Oh, this is looking very, very rough. Maybe that Purification Nova. I mean, it blows up a Marine there in the end, but we still have the bunkers here as well, Ben.
This is phenomenal play by Clem. Look at the worker count as well. 41-28. The Terran in the lead. Yeah, that third base, you've got one, but what are you doing with it? I think this was a total overestimation of how good Goblin's defense was going to be. Now, Clem, he's kind of playing a bit safe here, going back to the bunker, kind of preparing for that next Disruptor shot. And this is good with the Phoenix picking off the reinforcements and such, but can't even do that.
Yeah, I mean, he lost quite a few Phoenixes, so that's going to be obviously quite hard. And, I mean, the tank is quite tanky. He's going to need an absolutely magical Disruptor shot. I mean, this one does damage the bunkers a little bit, but we all know that the Protoss is going to need quite a bit more here. So many workers have gone down already. So even if Goblin would eventually clean this up, it's obviously safe to say that this push has already been very successful for Clem. But Clem is not done yet.
No, he's not. And the Disruptor falls, and GG. Clem annihilates Goblin in an extremely one-sided series here. And I think Clem, this might be his WCS, where he's really going to finally make a super deep run into the tournament.
Yep, he just launches himself here into the round of 24, winning this final round of the knockout bracket. Of course, Goblin once again did finish in the money, and I think that's a very impressive performance by the young Croatian. That's back-to-back deep runs at a WCS circuit event, but this series, Clem absolutely was the bigger man.
He was so well prepared for